Meanwhile, the issue of maximizing the potential of African countries through job creation was the main focus at the plenary session. President Goodluck Jonathan, his counterpart from Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and the co-chair of the World Economic Forum Africa, Mr. Dominic Barton, offered suggestions on how to fast-track Africa's development.
Trying to change the thinking of our young people to always think that after graduation, after finishing from school, the only place you can get a job is government. There is no government that can employ a reasonable percentage of the citizens. So you must encourage the private sector, and you must encourage the private sector to invest in the real sector. So what we are doing as a government is to create that environment where the private sector will see that there are gains to be made. And when you create the environment where the private sector notices that if they invest in this sector or in this area, they will make returns. Definitely, you get investors from within the country and outside the country.
Here we are talking about Africa and this growth of Africa. But you continue to see also how Africa is not necessarily working together across the board. So we discovered that intra-African trade has huge potential, but how much are we cooperating between and among nations of Africa to make sure that we allow this trade, which involves huge numbers in our populations, to improve their lives. So there are things we should not take for granted, but we know they also work, so we should make them work. This is how we are informed by what needs to be done, and we try to do what needs to be done.
If we go back to how do we create the jobs and so forth, I think there's a number of elements that have to come into place. One is actually around the sector focus, again, which President Jonathan mentioned. There are huge opportunities well beyond the natural resource side of things, and ag food has been talked about. President Kagame's done a lot. A number of Ethiopia, what they're doing on that side, there are a huge number of jobs and businesses that can be created by building out that sector, making it a priority. The second is infrastructure. We're going to need $2.6 trillion of infrastructure. Infrastructure creates jobs. For basically every 100 billion of infrastructure you put in, you create 1 million jobs. And that's a win-win, if you will, in terms of where we drive it. So working the system to be able to enable infrastructure to be built quickly, I think will help drive it through. So these sectors, and healthcare is another one, there's a number of them to focus on, which will, I think, create a very vibrant workforce and therefore the middle class. The other areas I just focus on is vocational training. I think we focus too much on university education. What we need more of are the welders, the electricians, the plumbers, nurses, radiologists, and so forth. And that's an area we need to build out. It's education for employment.